Hello, YouTube. Hey, I wanted to take a little time to talk about the Hertz Rent2Buy program, um, which I've done twice now. Just bought my second car, which, as you can probably guess, is actually pictured behind me. And the reason I'm doing this is I've seen a lot of reviews and videos of people really bashing the program um, because they really don't understand how it works. And I have to admit, the first time I did Rent2Buy, I didn't understand it either, and it wasn't a great experience, although I got a car really cheap. Second time, so much better, just because I knew what was going on. The best way to explain Rent2Buy is to think of it like one of the super discount airlines out there that people are always complaining about. You want to get to Fort Lauderdale, you want to get there cheap, you fly Spirit Airlines. And if you don't know how they operate, which is basically you pay for everything extra, you might be shocked and not have a good experience. But if you know what you're getting into up front, you're just looking for a cheap flight, and you're willing to go through a little bit of hassle, it's a super deal. Same thing with Rent2Buy. It is a bit of a hassle, no doubt about it. It's not the same as a regular car buying experience. A little more work on the consumer's part, but in the end you get an awesome deal, at least in my experience. So first let me talk about what it is, which is literally rent to buy. It's not the same thing as going into a showroom, talking to a salesman and test driving a couple cars, and then you start the haggling process. You literally go in and you rent a car, and then after you've rented it, you decide if you want to buy it or not. It's just pretty much the name of the program, which sounds pretty straightforward, but it is very confusing if you've never done it. So part of the problem here is the process does take a while, because you have to go in and do a rental, rent the car, and then go back and do the paperwork to buy the car. So people complain about the amount of time it takes, and yes, it does take some time once you're at the dealership. This last one took about 4.5 hours total. I don't see how they could shorten that up too much, so if you do this, plan on being at the dealership for a while. Basically, you have to rent the car from a Hertz rental place. Usually you can rent it where you buy it, but not always. The first time I rented it, I had to go to Syracuse, New York to pick up the car, and then take it to Rochester, New York to purchase the car. Apparently there's two separate entities in Hertz. There's the rental and there's the sales, and it almost seems like, I think what happens is rental has to sell the car to the sales side, and then sales side sells the car to you. So there's a big paperwork shuffle that goes on, which just takes a while. So let's talk about the whole process, beginning to end. So you go on the Hertz website, find the car you want, and there's two sides to it. There's sales, I think it's called certified, which means you actually buy it off of a Hertz car sales showroom, which is basically just buying a used car like you normally would. And then there's rent to buy, which is buying a car right out of the rental fleet. So when you look at the website, it'll say something like my car said, it would be available July 4th. And okay. Well, what happens, and what happened with this time, with this car, and actually last time, is the car's rented out, and the expected return date was July 4th. But if you've ever rented a car or gone to pick up a rental, sometimes people keep cars out longer, and both times I had to wait 2 more days. So it originally said it would be expected to be back July 4th. I actually ended up having it ready for me July 6th in the morning. It's supposed to be July 4th in the evening. So be aware, the date they say there is the expected date. It's not a promise date. The first time I got really upset when I did my first car in 2015, because I thought it said it's going to be ready. But that's not really what that means. It just means that somebody's got it rented out, and they're supposed to bring it back by that date. And, you can kind of understand from Hertz side, you're not guaranteed to buy the car, and they've got somebody there guaranteed to rent it. I get it. You rent the car, and that's the way it goes. So that's one thing you got to be aware of. Second thing with Hertz, you have to actually go to one of their car sales locations to pay for the car, no matter where you actually get the rental. So like I said, the first time I rented it in Syracuse at the airport, and then the car sales showroom, the nearest one was Rochester, so I did actually drive it to Rochester to do the paperwork. So that's a little unusual, the way that whole thing works. Second thing, it's it's right out of the rental fleet, so it doesn't go through prep or anything. It's up to you, the buyer, to actually look over the vehicle. When you buy it, like this one comes with the manufacturer's warranty, the balance of all the powertrain and bumper to bumper and all that. But that's the only warranty it comes with. Whereas if you buy it from a dealership, you have a little more opportunity if you have problems with the vehicle. So you definitely want to have it checked out or look it over carefully when you go to pick it up. So anyway, the way the process works, right? You go online, you reserve your car. I will say, when you go online, this is just like shopping at Amazon. There are coupons out there. I know AAA, there's like a $300 off, at least at the time I purchased it. Hertz Gold Club was $350, so I ended up using that. So I got $350 off using the coupon code, just like ordering on Amazon. Pretty crazy. But that's really the only discount you get. You can't haggle once you're there. So you go ahead online, you put in your information. They tell you the expected return date. You have to wait until the dealership actually calls you, or I'm sorry, not the dealership, the rental place calls you to say the car is going to be ready, before you actually go and pick it up. So when you go to get the car, if you want to make things really easy, do a couple things first. One, it's going to have to be insured, so talk to your insurance company and get a proof of insurance. When you do the rent to buy, you get the VIN number and everything, so you just give that to your insurance company. Second thing I would strongly suggest is get a pre-approval on an auto loan. That'll give you, two things. One, it'll tell you what type of interest rate you can expect. And two, it gives you something to negotiate with finance at the dealership. So, for example, I got a pre-approved from my bank. I actually had a form I could take right into the dealership, and that counted as payment. So the bank would actually pay for it as soon as I bought it. However, this time, and also last time, I actually talked to the finance people, and they asked if they could try and find me a better rate. And both times they actually did. So that was good. Not a huge amount of 1%. But, it's something. Doesn't mean that they'll get a better rate for you. I know if you go to like a credit union, if you're a member of a credit union, that's probably where you're going to get the best rate. But you should do that ahead of time, and then you're good to go when you get to the dealership. So you got your insurance, you got your prepayment, so you have something to negotiate with, or you can just do that and not have to deal with the finance people. One thing I will say is when you're there, whether or not you use their financing, you're going to talk to their finance. They're going to try and sell you things. Do your research ahead of time. I didn't take any of the things they tried to sell me. And just say no. That's all you have to do. Their job is to try and sell you the stuff to make money, feed their families. I get it. No problem. But for me, none of their extras was worth it. So I said no to everything. That's all you have to do is just say no. Not interested. But listen to their spiel. So then the way the process works, like I said, you go there. Actually, the first thing you have to do is rent the vehicle from the rental side. Like I said, it seems like I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure Hertz is split into two separate companies. So you rent on the rental side, and you have to rent for, I think it's at least an hour or up to 3 days. So you can take the car, wherever you want. There's no pressure, so they don't care if you take it to your mechanic or the local dealership of that brand of vehicle or whatever, somebody you trust, or just drive it around and check it out yourself. Make sure everything's good, because once you got it, it's yours. Drive it around, and then you go back to the dealership. Now, they don't start the process of transferring the car from the rental fleet to the sales side until you actually come back and say, yes, I want this vehicle. So be aware, it takes a little while once that whole process starts. So the first thing you do, you go in there, rent. That takes about 20 minutes to do all the paperwork. Then you go back or to whatever sales location you're going to, and you start the purchase. So you got to give it 45 minutes, maybe an hour. We actually just went out to lunch while they were doing the transfer, paperwork transfer. Yeah, so that takes a little while. And then from that point on, it's like a normal car sales. There's no negotiating, though. It's just the price is the price. One thing to be aware of, though, and you can actually call the Hertz 1-800 number beforehand, is know what the document fees are in each state. So, for example, I live in Pennsylvania, but I went to Virginia to get this car. And the document fees in Virginia were $489, kind of steep. Document fees in Pennsylvania, they said were I think it was $138, but none of the Pennsylvania dealerships had the vehicle I wanted, and even with that document fee, it was still a great deal that I got on my car. So again, I did some research on that too to see if it was just like, dealer trying to just make some extra money off you, and as far as I could tell, no, it's not. But do your own research. But document fee is pretty much set in stone. So, call around. Maybe if you're on the border of two different states and you can find a car that's about the same price and everything at the state with a cheaper document fee, then go there and get it. So anyway, you go through that process, sign your paperwork, and away you go. It's really that simple. Main things, like I said, is you have to be a little bit flexible with your time. Just realize it's rented out. The expected date isn't necessarily the date it's going to be back. And even when it does come back, they take a day to prep the vehicle. And I will say they did a very nice job getting this car cleaned up. It looked really nice. A couple of just things that I've learned from doing this twice. One is the finance rates, at least at my bank, were about 2% cheaper if I bought a 2017 model versus a 2016 model, because 2017, it's 2018 right now, I should say, July. Still counted as a new car, so the interest rate was lower. So just be aware of that when you're looking at cars. And also, I had to go and try out a bunch of cars. I needed a tall car. One of my sons is 6'5", and tall in the torso, so I had to find a tall car. So I had to actually go and sit in a lot of cars at local dealerships. And if you want to do something like that, try out cars locally. Just a hint, the important thing is to make sure that the salespeople know that you're not the decision maker. So say something like, I'm here looking for my wife or my mother or somebody else who's the one that's actually going to be buying the car, because if they know you're not the decision maker, then they're probably not going to spend a lot of time with you, because they know that they won't make the sale right then and there. Just a little hint to get onto lots and try things out. Another thing I will say is, if my local dealership could have given me a decent price, I probably would have gone local. Just because if you have somebody local, if you have problems, it's the dealer's right there, they can take care of it. So again, that's a trade-off. You're saving a lot of money, but there are some trade-offs to that savings. So the other thing I didn't do, because I'm in a rural area, I just have one Volkswagen dealer nearby. But a lot of places advertise that they'll beat any deal. So print out the deal you can get from Hertz and take it to your dealership and see if they'll match it. If they have something on the lot that comes close to that, you can give that a try. There was nothing around here that came close to this deal at all. I mean, by thousands. So, that didn't work for me, but maybe it'll work for you if you're looking for a more common vehicle. Anyway, yeah, so that's how the whole process went. First time I didn't understand a lot of the steps. I really didn't understand rent to buy wasn't really the same as buying off the lot, and that made things frustrating. And that's also when I look at reviews or see YouTube videos on this, that's the frustration. People don't understand this is different than just going to the lot and picking up a car. You'll save a lot of money because they're passing all that savings of them not having to take the car to auction and do all that prep work and all that stuff. They don't have to do all that, so they pass that savings on. But on the flip side, it's up to you as a consumer to do a lot more legwork. So know exactly what you're getting. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Hertz Rent2Buy. I like it. It worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you. Maybe it won't. Who knows? Anyways, hope that was helpful and makes your shopping experience go well. Thanks.